Hi, everybody. This is Horsepower Heritage. I'm Maurice Merrick. Great to have you in again, and this time we're talking American muscle and specifically Ford performance with Tom Maxwell of Velocity Restorations. They do some impressive 67 and 68 Mustang builds and also some Fox Body Mustangs, which I've always loved because that was the Mustang I remember from my teenage years. But Velocity brings them to a whole new level. By the way, they also do Broncos, F100s, F-150s, all kinds of other stuff. You can see what I'm talking about at velocityrestorations.com. I would love to own one of their notchback Fox bodies with a Coyote V8 and a Tremec manual gearbox. No frills, no aero kit, just a sleeper that eats Corvettes. Anyway, here's Tom Maxwell of Velocity Restorations. Enjoy.
All right, Tom, so I have to be honest with you. I was expecting a Florida boy, and you're from the UK, right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm from the north of England, originally Yorkshire. Yeah.
All right. So you guys at Velocity, you're down in Pensacola area.
That's right.
And you're doing some amazing builds from classic Ford trucks and even like international scouts. But I'm really interested to hear about the Fox Body Mustangs, the 67 and 68 Mustangs, and the classic Broncos that you're doing, the first gen 66 to 67. So I think this is going to be fun.
No, yeah, it's good. We've got a lot to talk about. Lots of stuff moving at the moment, and it always feels like it's a whirlwind here. So who knows what will come next? Either we've got some plans this year for some new stuff as well. So it's exciting.
And you're the chief restoration officer at Velocity, is that right?
That would be such a cool title. I'm the chief revenue officer, so a bit more boring. I wish I was the chief restoration officer.
Well, I don't know. You should talk to the boss and see if maybe we can.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me about the business itself. It's founded by Stuart Wilson, right, in 2012?
Yep, that's right. Yep. So it's founded by Stuart, and he had a business partner in the early days, a chap called Brandon. Two guys here local from Pensacola. Stuart. He was a submariner in the Navy. He was a nuclear engineer, and so got out. And as he was getting out, he got into real estate. So he was buying and selling houses, and then the crash happened. So had a bit of a tough time, and through that process, kind of lost almost everything apart from an old Bronco that he had. And so he fixed the Bronco with his wife at the time, and they sold the truck. You know, it was a personal truck that they kept for a while, but they had to sell it after fixing it up, you know, because of what happened. And one truck to another, and the business just continued to grow, and here it is today. So really cool story. Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. So many restorers and builders that I talk to, that's how it started. Just one project in the garage, and it becomes this amazing business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously with where the industry is now, there's definitely we're beginning to see some consolidation, you know, from private equity and people like that. But ultimately, they're still investing in or buying out people that did just start from their garage or with their friends or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So Velocity is really focused on American muscle at its root. I mean, but that's not what you had growing up in Yorkshire, certainly.
No, definitely not. No, but before getting here, I'd always sold cars in America, so of course I had some knowledge of American car culture and cars. But I'd never sat in a Bronco. You know, I'd never driven a Mustang or anything like that. They have a kind of very different appeal in the UK. I talked to my friends. I have my fiance here. She drives a 2016, 2017 V8 Mustang GT. And it's a great car, you know, it loads of power, tons of fun, looks amazing, you know, and it cost us, I don't know how many miles it had on it when we bought it, but I want to say it was like $25,000 or something like that. That same car in the UK would be double that, and it would almost be seen as like a really exotic, exciting, which that is a really exciting car, you know, it's a great car, but it's just a different kind of ethos out there versus, again, of course, you have the other, and my background, the other side of that coin is British cars coming into America, you know, a seat where, you know, Defenders and things like that I grew up around, just back home are just another farm truck, whereas here they're like a real kind of status symbol. So it's funny.
Yeah, it's interesting how the approach to cars in the UK and the US is so different. And of course, the UK, historically, they taxed you on horsepower and displacement. So smaller engines kind of ruled. But here we didn't have that constraint. And then by the 50s, the horsepower wars and overhead valve V8s, like everything changed. And suddenly it was the muscle era by 1955.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just like the gasoline economy. I think what a lot of people don't realize, both sides, like when my family visit here, and we're in the Panhandle, so we have quite a lot of space compared to maybe some more of the built up areas around Florida and other places in the US. But maybe not as much space as Texas. They haven't been there yet, but they we can't just walk to the shops. No, you have to get in the car. And so that's, I think, why certainly people in the UK, of course, are still passionate about automobiles and cars. There's car culture everywhere, but these muscle cars in particular, and this kind of idea of it not just being transport but also being more than that, definitely for me has always resonated more with a US audience.
Hey guys, I want to take a quick break to say if you enjoy Horsepower Heritage, there are a few ways you can support the show. Go to buymeacoffee.com/HP Heritage and become a patron. There's a link in the show notes. You can make a one-time donation or you can support the show monthly. It's easy, and for the price of a latte, you can help me continue to bring you more of the people and stories behind the machines. You can also leave 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify because that helps new listeners discover the show. Thanks for your support, and now back to the show.
Have you become a Ford guy over the years?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. Am I a Ford or a Chevy guy? Of course, I can't really have favorites because we build them all. But yeah, I mean, I have an F-150 that I drive every day. Meg, my fiance, she has that Mustang. If I was going to pick any car or truck out of our lineup today, it would be the 67, 68 fastback for sure. Probably not the GT500, and we can talk about what we're doing with those a bit later on, maybe. But just the standard fastback, I just think it's an insanely beautiful car. One of my favorite cars of all time is the Jaguar E-Type, and the look of the E-Type and the shape of the E-Type I just think is so beautiful. And I think that the fastback is basically America's equivalent, in my opinion, to the E-Type in terms of its curves and its shapes, and just as an object, I think they're beautiful. Yeah, that would be my choice. Sorry, Chevy guys.
No, that's an interesting comparison, and I have to say it never occurred to me, but Ford really did just get that design right, that 67, 68, which brings me to a question I had, which I actually was wondering why you guys focus on the 67 and 68 Mustang. Is it because of the popularity of that particular car?
Yeah, it's so when we're looking at models in general, we have to put things through a bit of a filter. So we're a big company now. We employ about 160 people. We build about 140, 150 cars a year. So what ends up happening when we're looking at a new model is you can't just build ones or twosies in the way that we're set up. And again, we can talk about that in a bit more detail, but you have to choose something that's going to have volume. So you hit the nail on the head. The 67, 68, the aftermarket's already there. There are a ton of people already working on them and customizing them. Obviously, there is this absolute kind of American muscle car royalty baked into that particular. Not that there isn't others, certainly the 69, 70 Mach 1 and those variants, the Boss, becoming increasingly popular, always have been. But for us, velocity as a brand, yeah, the 67, 68 was the right fit because of those reasons, and also because it shares quite a lot of things actually to the other Ford models of that era, door handles. And there was a lot of learnings that we could take from, even though Bronco's a truck or an SUV and the Mustang's a car, there was a lot of learnings that we could take from what we were already doing and apply it to that.
Gotcha. And also, in my opinion, at least, the 64.5 through 66 Mustangs are a little bit plain compared to the 67 and 68. The restyle was much more aggressive, much sexier at the end of the day. And I think it lends itself to, a more, not radical custom, but I guess a more flamboyant custom, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's definitely people out there that are pushing the limits of what that can be. The guys, there's a company called Ruffian who did a crazy build, this green car with like all sorts of custom stuff on it. And I think the beauty about I think again all of the cars of this era, but certainly the Mustang is a bit of a blank canvas. So we get some people when they come in and build a car with us that they do just want something in very basic moss green, standard wheels, just something really simple, black or brown interior, nothing fancy. And that car that we build it on the same line as the guy that comes in and says, I want to do a electric blue with white racing stripes, and I want aggressive front valance, and I want to do a blower on it, and I want to throw this thing out and do like blue stitching all the way through and they if you look side by side, they literally have two different side profiles because of the aggressive things that we put on them when we do the kind of more street version of the builds. But they're the same car, but completely different in terms of like the design ethos that the person wants to achieve.
Yeah. And you can also put some pretty big wheels and tires under a 67 and 68 without a lot of modification. But with your builds, you're going with a Roadster shop chassis, right? In fact, let's break it down. Let's tell everyone, if I come in and order a 67 Mustang, what does that build consist of?
So it depends a little bit on what level you do, but if you do the entry level, which is what we call our signature series, it's all new body. It's a Roadster shop spec chassis underneath it, an IFS chassis. It's now a fourth generation Coyote, so 5-liter V8 crate engine, and then the choice of either a Tremec 6-speed manual or a 10-speed automatic transmission. You got disc brakes all round. We use Bayer disc brakes on our cars. We use Willwood on a lot of our trucks. And then, you get all of the normal mod cons that you would want in a restomod too. So you obviously get things like you can have heated and cooled seats. You get AC all the way through the cabin. You can do Bluetooth. You can do touchscreen with Apple CarPlay. You get a Focal speaker system, LED lights, all that stuff. Yeah.
And it's still a solid rear axle in the rear, but it's a 4-link suspension. So definitely better road holding than the standard Mustang.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, we joke that the Mustang is definitely the best driving vehicle in terms of performance that we build. And they're like a cat on carpet when we're done with them. They do really handle exceptionally well. There's still like a little bit of the nuance of the core car, though. You don't want to make it too what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want to remove the complete dynamics of the original car. That's important. There was a company that they actually went bankrupt a few years ago. They were called Charge Cars. I think they maybe just got resurrected in the UK. And they were doing 67, 68s, but they were doing them electric. And they were really cool company, cool design. But it's like, hang on, is anybody this is my opinion, no affiliation with the company whatsoever, but is anybody really going to want to buy an electric Mustang that doesn't actually like vibrate and make really loud noises and like feel cool and smell and make and like and I don't know if that was to do with why they didn't work out, but that you can't remove all of that entirely. You have to have some emotion with the car, so we make sure that we don't like 1,000% dial it in and that there is still some of that going on, but we definitely, our core focus is on everyday drivability and reliability. You don't want to get in the car on a Saturday morning after a long week of work and it not start and have an issue with the fuel injection system or whatever, right? Something. Ours, you just turn the key, start up first time, you can drive them and enjoy them.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, a Mustang isn't a Mustang without the rumble of a V8.
Exactly.
If I had to guess, I would say that company was trying to anticipate regulatory changes and policy changes in the UK and EU. I mean,
absolutely.
You mentioned the E-Type earlier. There was a company that was doing EV E-Types. Again, like, what's the point?
No, yeah, and we can talk about that. There's something that we get asked a lot. I think we actually, so Velocity, when I first got here, we had a EV Bronco driving around, and in my background, my history, I'd done electric conversions of vehicles before. I do think there is a space for electric conversion of vehicles, classic vehicles, when the value of the vehicle was like the drive line and the emotion behind it was like the last thing. So like I electrified Land Rover Defenders. A Land Rover Defender was not known for its straight line performance, its noise, and its power. Right? It was a utility vehicle. Or there's a couple of companies out there that do like electric swaps on VW camper vans and buses and things like that. That's great, right? Because it was always really underpowered, and it's about getting out there with your family and having fun. It's not about the noise it's making, right? So I think there's a space for it. But what we found, Velocity had electric Bronco when I got here, and it was a great product. 200 miles of range, which at the time was really good, and it had fast charging, and of course it went really quick, 0 to 60. but no one wanted to buy them because it was like, if I'm buying a Bronco, I want the noise and I want the sound and I want the theater of all of that. And so I think I think you hit the nail on the head. I think some of these companies were anticipating consumer and regulatory change, but also I think now that that's kind of like being accepted in the mainstream. Obviously where EVs are right now is a bit up in the air, but certainly there's hundreds of thousands of Teslas on the road and things like that. People have accepted that from their daily cars. They Rivian and things like that. There's people that are buying and consuming that product. Those same guys, though, they still want something that they can get in on the weekend that is gonna actually put a smile on their face, and that's gonna remind them of what they used to be able to drive. And I think that's why companies like ours have been so successful over the past few years, is because people are beginning to embrace that.
Absolutely true. Let's talk a little bit about the Broncos. Super popular platform. They made a ton of them, so there's plenty of them out there. But there are a lot of different ways to approach it. You could go with an essentially stock appearance, but modern underpinnings. But you guys, it seems like you, on most of your builds, take it a step further and sort of modernize the appearance as well. Is that generally how people like to order them?
Yeah, we do a little bit of modernization, but really not much, honestly. Like the only thing that we change as standard from a first generation Bronco would be we don't offer things like fiberglass fender flares. So we do like a fully modded fender flare. We also offer the uncut version with the rear flare lower down. But that's it. The rest of what we offer is pretty much true to form. Inside the cabin, we don't over modernize. We do offer the option for people to add, touchscreen and Apple CarPlay and things like that. But even in that iteration, we try and do it so that the original dash look, it retains that original aesthetic. It doesn't like, sometimes you see people and they'll take like a full iPad size screen or something and just drop it on the front of the truck, and that's not what we do. But it's really the modernization is the underpinnings of the car. Yeah, the
Right.
truck, 100%. It's disc brakes, it's things like electric steps, power windows, obviously new AC. That functionality those cars just didn't have, and then the reliability of the performance. And the company started with Broncos, and up until 7-8 years ago, you could order a more original engine in a Velocity Bronco, like a 302 with a fuel injection system or something like that. But the problem with those is, even though they're great and they have so much history and they're really cool for other reasons, right? They have a different noise to them. People love the idea that they have a more original engine. For our customers, they're just not reliable. They're just not usable and friendly in the same way something like a Coyote is.
Sure, because all of the engine management system you get with a Coyote makes it super reliable. And also, the fuel economy is better just in normal everyday driving.
Yeah, marginally. Yeah, not that many of our customers care so much about fuel
True.
economy on
Good
a vehicle like this. But the first thing you hit on is 100% right. It's the modules and the brain that comes with that, and then the serviceability, the ease of serviceability of it long term. If you get a code or there's something flashes, you can literally just scan it like you would a new truck, and it will tell you, okay, this is the issue. And if you want to get the truck serviced, you don't have to go to some specialist wizard that's a classic car expert. You can literally just take it to a Ford dealer and they know exactly what they're looking at, because it's the same engine as their new generation product, the same V8, so it's that.
When I said modernization on the Broncos, I guess what I was really referring to was like the paint colors, the wheel and tire combo. That kind of brings it up into a more contemporary look, at least to my eye. I mean, it's still a classic Bronco, on first blush. The interiors are almost too nice in a way for a Bronco, because a Bronco really is kind of a utility vehicle, but I understand why people want a little bit of a plushy interior these days. I mean, you want to be comfortable, you want to have, I'm guessing they have power seats, right? Power adjustment, and you could probably even put heated seats, which would be nice for an open vehicle like that.
Yeah, we offer heated and cooled seats. I think, definitely there's some elements that you'd like. The wheels, we offer a couple different types of wheels. So for the Bronco, about 50% of people will choose our signature, what we call our signature series, as it comes. And you're right, just the overall coloring and aesthetic of some of those cars are slightly more modern. But then we have about 50% of other people that choose what we call our Ranger package. That's when the wheels go to like a steely wheel and you get the Ranger stripes like they originally came from Ford, and you get a white roll cage, you get like old sort of weaved insert seats. That really looks like a modern interpretation still, but of the classic truck. So with those, if you're standing like 20 meters away, you would just think, oh, wow, that's a really clean original 68 Bronco or something. Yeah.
See, I really like that. I love the classic look of a Bronco but with modern underpinnings. And that's kind of true of all these vintage cars because I like the sleeper concept. I like the fact that people can look at it and not realize it can blow doors on your car, or the performance is way beyond what you expect from the original.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know you want to talk a little bit about the Fox Body, and I think the Fox Body that we built is kind of like our ultimate Velocity's ultimate ode to that, to that ideology. But for sure, that's why I think what's really interesting, people when they come to our facility, they're shocked quite a lot of the time because they'll walk through and we have an area for trade-ins where we take vehicles on trade, and whether they're going out to another dealer or we're going to represent them or whatever. And we'll quite often have like European sports cars, really exotic cars in that area. We've taken Porsche product on trade. We've taken lots of different sort of Lamborghini Urus product, G-Wagon, all that sort of stuff. And people are like, why are people getting rid of this? It's because it's what that says about them. Our customers don't want to be flashy like those cars are. They want to be the sleeper. They want to be in something that people just see as a cool original car until they hear the noise and they're flying past them at 100 miles an hour. And then they go, oh, maybe something is a bit different about that one. But they don't want to be like showy. They want, it to be more nuanced.
I'm glad you mentioned the Fox Body. The Mustang was really in a bad spot during the Mustang 2 era and the fuel crisis of the early 70s and all that. And maybe people don't know, but the Fox Body Mustang, that platform was actually basically a Ford Fairmont, a very vanilla mid-size sedan. And the Fox Body really saved the Mustang, if you ask me. I mean, Ford might have discontinued it were it not for that great idea to, hey, let's build the next Mustang on this platform. And I grew up around lots of Mustang GT Fox bodies, with the body kit and the 5-liter. And that was the hot muscle car when I was in high school. So I have a special place in my heart for them. I've had a couple of friends that own them, and so much fun. And you guys just had a big SEMA build on a Fox Body, right? That black car. That's amazing.
Yeah. So we took that car to SEMA. When we launch a new model, the thing that we do first is we just try and build one, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that will say they're going to do something and it's all renders and designs, and then you actually never see it, right? So we always try and build a concept car first. So that black one at SEMA was our concept car. It's actually owned by Stuart, the owner of our company, and he's the same as you. He grew up around Fox bodies and always liked Fox Body. I think he had a Fox Body in school, and so he just has this like emotional connection to them. But what we wanted to do with that is we wanted to, if you see the interior on that car, the interior is like a complete dedication to the original, with just this slight like modern panache almost to it, where it's not the outside of it just looks like a really clean Fox apart from the wheels, right? I mean, obviously the wheels are a little bit flashy, but then you open the door and you're like, I recognize this, but it's not the same. And that for us was like, how can we do this so that people that have this connection with this car, because of course, especially the notch, it wasn't, it wasn't an affluent person's car at all. It was the notch was like an affordable, like straight line racer and just go out and have fun and beat the hell out of it, right? And so we didn't want to take away from that and make it something that it wasn't. We wanted to respect that heritage, but just improve upon the basics.
Absolutely. And you're so right about the interior. When I saw the interiors, my first thought was, this is how Ford should have done it if the numbers worked out. And of course, the numbers wouldn't have worked out. It's a mass production car, but
yeah, it's definitely the Fox as well. It was definitely about how do we how do we respect the form of the original, but then just gently improve it? So you're right, the material choices are really important. Even if the actual shape of certain elements remain the same, making sure that the materials have been improved. So things that were previously in plastic, and that were known for being flimsy on the original car, let's remake those and clip them in and make them out of billet, right? So you get that premium feeling. The seats themselves, the seats that were in the original donor of that car actually don't look, in terms of a texture, crazy dissimilar to what's in the car now. The rest of the seat, in terms of its bolstering and its support, is different, right? Because you want that modern feeling. But at first glance, like you said, you go, was this something that they actually offered, and that maybe people think that. And so I'm glad that you felt that way, because it was the intention.
Another interesting thing about the Fox body is a number of law enforcement agencies ordered notchbacks for patrol. Most famously, the California Highway Patrol had, I think, a couple hundred of them, maybe not even that many. 5-speed with no light bar. The lights were on the rear deck inside the rear windscreen. And those were pursuit vehicles, far cooler than the Camaro at the time, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then you mentioned the GT and your friends having the GT. If I had a choice between the two, I know the Notch is like more of the enthusiast and has like this real core lineage and everything. But being European, I love the look of the GT because it does just look a little bit more aggressive and it's a little bit more boxy. I just think that car is a really cool car. And it's so, for me anyway, it's so that era. Go back to the 67, 68, those sweeping curves. That's that. Then you go to the GT and it's like these two complete paradigm shifts, but you still have this same ethos around. There was a dedicated style choice that was made. Even if Ford are not known for like all of the crazy style choices they made throughout the years, right? They're not an Italian car manufacturer. There's still some things that they intended and meant to do. And for me, the GT is just one of those things, especially when you start messing around with the body kits and stuff. I just think they look great.
Yeah, and I think it was also one of the best efforts at that sort of body kit look. The rocker panels and the front and rear valances and that wing. You can think of a lot of 80s cars that sort of had that body kit look, and everything from, it doesn't have to be a mass production car. I mean, like the Gambala Porsches and certain custom Mercedes-Benz cars in the 80s. The Ferrari Testarossa, it has that sort of body kit look, right? But the Mustang definitely is one of the top examples that I can think of. Now, these Fox bodies weren't really all that powerful when new. I mean, they were kind of detuned. Again, there was another gas crisis in the late 70s, and fuel economy was a big issue at the time. And, the U.S. government wanted manufacturers to have a corporate average fuel economy. So there was a lot of contributing factors to the reason why early 80s, mid 80s muscle cars aren't really that muscular under the hood. But of course, you guys have fixed that with a Coyote under the hood of these. What are they pumping out? I imagine you guys have kind of a range of power option.
Yeah, so we keep it pretty standard. So you can do just the normal Gen 4 Coyote. That's 460, 470 horsepower, something like that. And then we do, so the one that was at SEMA, that had a Whipple on it, had a 3-liter Whipple on it. So you can go there. And then, of course, we've got a dyno in-house that you can get crazy numbers out of that Coyote when you start messing around with that. And it really depends on how far do you want to take it. And then do you have the other core performance components around it to support it when you go up to that really high power. You have to start thinking about transmission and maybe changing your brake and your steering dynamics and things like that. But as standard, they'll all be around 470.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Whipple. I love supercharging. I mean, it sounds so much better than any turbo.
yeah, they do. Yeah, and definitely, I think the it's the same thing again. Coming back to the heritage, for me, every time I think of putting a Whipple or a blower on something, it's it's making it. Even though I know now, especially in that industry, there's all that people make a lot of just pre-made tunes and kits that you can go in. There's nothing wrong with that, but it just does make me feel like it's somebody making it theirs. It's like it's just doing that next thing. And coming back to the sleeper analogy, when the hood's shut, you might well, unless the hood was a different hood style to accept it. You might not necessarily know that there was anything going on until they overtook you. And that black car that we had at SEMA, that thing is lightning fast. I mean, you can make power too, right? You can make all the power in the world, but if you actually can't use it, then it is somewhat meaningless. The black car drives as good as it looks. I can tell you firsthand. We really wanted to make sure that we didn't go over the top. And again, that's just a testament to that new Roadster Shop chassis, the Fox chassis that they offer. That's why we're in their booth. It was a partnership with those guys, and it does stand up to that sort of use.
And, also the Fox Body is a relatively light car. Like I want to say 2,700 pounds when they were new. So, 460 horsepower in that platform is plenty.
Yeah, obviously there's a little bit more weight than when we're done. I don't know. I don't think we've got the stuff here. I don't know. I have off the top of my head what they came out if we've actually weighed it. It'd be a little bit more. But yeah, they're fast. There's no two ways about it. They're fast. But that one is fast, not just in a straight line, but it's fast around the corners too. It's a really fun car.
I mean, it can't be much more than 3,000 pounds, but give or take, probably.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, it's cool. And the hood bulge on the black car is awesome. I mean, obviously that's because of the Whipple supercharger, right? It kind of sticks up, but you guys did that really well. Are you using carbon fiber in any of your builds?
So we don't for velocity, no. So we don't do any real carbon fiber. We have on the 67, 68, we do have very, very minor inserts and things that we offer in carbon, just as a little bit of a flavor choice. Sail panel inserts, center console inserts, things around the dash. But the main stuff that we do with carbon fiber is with Classic Recreations, the brand that we acquired about 6 months ago now. For that company, for that product, we make an entire carbon fiber GT500.
Interesting. Okay. And tell me a little bit about Classic Recreations.
So Classic Recreations is an old company. They were in Oklahoma for a little while, and then into Texas. There was a couple of changes of ownership, but really made their name in having Shelby license to build GT500 product. And so there was a short stint where they did some licensed Eleanors as well and things like that. But unfortunately, about 6-7 months ago, they had to file for bankruptcy. So they were building cars, and the cars that they were building were fantastic. They were building real good quality product, but they just for various reasons, right, that happened. So we acquired the company out of bankruptcy in a bankruptcy auction, and there was about 40-50 customers, unfortunately, that hadn't received their cars yet. So one of my jobs in my role, I'm going to stick with Chief Restoration Officer. I'm going to keep
okay.
But in my role was to basically call all these people and say, hey, this is what's happening with a new company that's taking over ownership, and work through with those people to essentially renegotiate and try and complete the builds for them. And I'm happy to say that a vast majority of them are going to finish them with us. And so we moved everything from Texas to our facility here in Pensacola, because we're in a 150,000 square foot facility. Not a lot of people realize how big Velocity as a company is, and so it made no sense for us to keep the operation there because we can do everything here. We added a new area in our facility dedicated just to Classic Recreations builds, and so the vision is we've got about 2 years of existing customer builds that we need to complete, get through, and then we've already sold a number of kind of new builds to new customers post the acquisition. But the vision is to make it truly a like an actually American engineered product. We're already in discussions with can't say exactly who, but GT drivers, NASCAR drivers, actual drivers to get behind the wheel of the cars, actually get them on tracks, actually put down lap times, do real engineering studies on the cars, and actually create a product that is, we in our industry, a lot of people look at Singer, Porsche out of California. Obviously, they have great partnerships they just announced a partnership with Red Bull. They did a lot of stuff with Williams earlier, I think, and they kind of are I'm not afraid to say this, they're still somebody that we look up to and say, hey, they're doing really cool things. That's where we kind of want to go with Classic is to actually make something that's really special. Not that we don't do that with Velocity, because obviously there's a cost that comes to that to a Singer now. They're like a $1.2 million car. Don't think Classic GT500 will ever get there, but it's certainly more expensive than a Velocity Fastback. But it's because of the engineering behind it, because of the carbon fiber. So that's where we want to go.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And in fact, I just interviewed Peter Naum, who's the founder of Gunther Works.
Mm-hmm.
And, they do Porsche 993s, but it's fully re-engineered. And part of the process of their development is on the track with professional drivers, Patrick Long and some others. So that's exactly the approach you guys should take. That's very exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely where we want to go. And obviously you can't mention Singer without mentioning Gunther. There's a lot of people doing amazing work with Porsches now, but for sure that same thing of like, this isn't just and it's hard. Listen, you can't do that really with Velocity products other than maybe the 67, 68 Fastback or maybe the street trucks like the F100, the rear-wheel drive stuff that we do. But there's no sense in trying to put a lap time down in a Bronco.
Right.
It's a four-wheel drive SUV. It just doesn't make any sense, right? But with Classic and some of the engineering that they'd already done, the carbon fiber access, the fact that they still we were able to retain this with Shelby, but the only people in the world allowed to make Shelby licensed carbon fiber GT500s, super unique product. It would almost be like a disservice to Carroll if we didn't go and try and start pushing the envelope again. So it probably in the next 2 or 3 years we'll want to take one to the Nürburgring and put a lap time down there and some other American tracks and maybe go up but for me being English, go up the hill climb at Goodwood Festival Speed and actually like do some things with the cars, like not just say, hey, here's what it does and it looks really cool, but actually like put it through its paces.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, that would be thrilling. Nürburgring, come on.
Yeah, that's the plan.
And I'm sure that those customers are breathing a sigh of relief knowing that their orders are going to be fulfilled.
Yeah, I for sure. I mean, it's a really difficult situation, and this industry is really hard. And we have a lot of people who come to our shop, whether they be from smaller shops, independent guys that are just looking for advice. Occasionally there's people that will come and look at what we do and then they'll try and replicate it themselves. But it's really difficult to do it at this scale, and so what we're trying to focus on with Classic and with these customers is delivering on the aspirations that they originally had, actually making sure they get their cars and their dreams, which we're a large company, so we just don't have some of the struggles that the smaller companies have. But then secondly, not just leaving it there, but actually pushing on and continuing to build the legacy and really making it what I believe it can be as a brand.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you are hand building these cars after all.
Yeah, we build them on an assembly line. So we build them in a slightly different way to most people. I've been in this industry 10, 11 years now, and there's probably a couple people now that are doing something similar. But if you came to our shop versus most of the other shops in the US, I would say there's very, very few people that have the setup that we do. But you're right, there's no robotics or machinery. The thing that Velocity has been able to capture is repeatability. So instead of having one man or two men build the entire car from start to finish, we have stations. And each tech just works in that station every week or every 2 weeks. They rotate. So they get really good at the bit that they do. So instead of having a mechanic to do wiring, body mock-up, interior fitment, all of it, you train one tech to get really good at doing something like Station 5A, which is our electronics station where we put the wiring loom in. He gets really good at that bit. And then he does it over and over and over again. And that's how you get consistency, and consistently leads to quality. That's what's special about us.
Yeah. And then there's also I guess I would say a continuity of quality, right?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Quality is, again, talking about Stuart's background, I don't even want to know how many meters under the water or feet he was under the water on the submarine. But when you're down there, things can't go wrong. And if they do go wrong, you better have a plan, because you ain't getting out of there quickly. So yeah, quality is literally built into every station that we operate, every single facet of the business. But as the vehicles go down, the guys in their station, they work through it depends on the vehicle, obviously, exactly what they're doing in the steps, but they work through a sequence. That sequence is the same every time. And as they go through that sequence, every sort of 5 or 6 steps of their day, there's a checkbox. And when it gets to that box, they have to stop and they have to actually call a QC tech over, a different person that will come and audit every single piece of their work and sign it off before they can continue working. And that happens all the way through the process, not just at the end, but at every stage. And that, again, that's what leads to quality over time.
I know a little bit about submarines and the silent service, as they call it. And one thing about nuclear power officers, which are Navy officers who primarily work in submarines, they have to be absolutely self-sufficient and think outside the box. And of course, that is that's kind of a tired expression, but it's really true when you're hundreds of meters under the water and you have a problem. You can't pick up the phone and call someone else. You've got to figure it out yourselves.
Yeah. I mean, you don't. Stuart would tell stories about his time there, and of course, there's a lot that goes on, under the water that they can't talk about for what they do. But for sure, I know there was times where he was under there where there was an emergency, and you can't ring it up because they're basically shut off from the outside world. And if a part fails or something goes wrong, you're basically making it in the submarine and you're working it out. Doesn't matter how long it takes or what you need to do, you just have to get it done. We have that exact same mentality here. The guys work we tend to work with technicians on 410s, so they work 10 hours a day for 4 days. That leaves Friday open. Friday is basically an allowance. So if the guys come up against issues or they don't get everything done, they have breathing room to run over into that day and get their stuff done. Everything rotates every week. And the expectation and what we train into people here, mentality wise, is you work till the job's done. And so if they don't get everything done, even on a Friday, they'll keep working on Saturday and Sunday because the station has to rotate. That's how we have, short lead times. But I think a lot of people are shocked when they say, they're like, you build a Bronco in 14 weeks. The truth is, we actually build a Bronco in 7 weeks. We have a Bronco fully assembled in 7 weeks. Second half is actually a lot of QA and testing, but it's because, again, we don't offer the customer 15,000 options. You get like 30 plus your color choices, and then it's about the repeatability of the process every time, and that's what allows speed.
Yeah, and too many choices is not a good idea. You definitely have to limit it. A quick story. I knew a nuclear power officer, and he told me about when he interviewed, he had to go before Admiral Hyman Rickover, who was the father of the nuclear propulsion program in the U.S. Navy. We're talking about the Polaris submarines from the late 50s, early 60s, right? He said he went into the Admiral's office, sat down, there were a series of questions, and at the end of the interview, the Admiral said, "Make me angry." And this guy thought about it for a minute, and then he got up out of his chair, stretched his arm out, and swept every item off the Admiral's desk onto the floor. The Admiral said, "Get out." So he left, and he thought, oh man, did I overstep it? Well, he passed the interview. He became a nuclear power officer. Very clever, again, thinking
Right.
out of the box. So
yeah.
I'll never forget that story. So funny. Tom, what kind of responses do you get from your customers, whether it's good or bad, or maybe just constructive criticism? What do people tell you once they've lived with the vehicles for a while? And I imagine it's different depending on whether they ordered a Bronco or a Mustang or what have you.
It's a good question. I think if I was going to say one thing that is consistent that we hear a lot from customers rather than just like one-offs and things, is that they use the vehicles more than they expected. That definitely is a common theme, but that comes with good things and bad things, right? Or good outcomes and bad outcomes, right? Sometimes people use them and they use them way more than they expected, and they end up, doing crazy things. I have one customer, I've told this story a couple times before, but we built him this absolutely beautiful F-250, single cab, bump side, just really nice truck. All the bells and whistles on it. This thing's stunning. And this guy he's just God bless him, it was his truck and he wanted to do what he wanted to do with it, that he got it, and within 24 hours of me getting notification that he'd taken delivery of it, he sent me a video of him doing donuts in his field in a $350,000 truck, just absolutely ripping this thing and just going crazy, right? I just texted him saying, hey, I'm so happy you're having a good time. I love that you're actually driving the truck and just getting out there and using it, right? And then 3 or 4 weeks passed, and I got this call saying, "Tom, hey, I'm really sorry. I'm going to send you some pictures, but I had an accident." And what happened was he'd basically was coming through a field. He owns a big ranch, and had just come through a fence gate, hit something or whatever, and just put the truck on its side. Knowing how the guy drove it, he must have been going fast, but put it on its
Oh
side.
no.
So I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." XYZ. He said, "No problem. It's going to be there next week. I'm going to put it on a transporter. Can you just fix it up for me?" And so it got back here, and we just basically put it all back right. And of course, next thing you know, it was back with him, and he was sending me videos doing the exact same thing again. He was just using it. So that's a bit of a rare case. The truth is that most of our customers are obviously just going to use them to, go around town and go to the shops or whatever, go get dinner. It's a Saturday and a Sunday car, but they can be used more than that. And there are plenty of customers, especially on the West Coast, where space is tight, and in Miami and places like that where either space again is tight, or they don't need to have tons of cars. We have customers that it's their only car for that house, or it's their only car at all. I've got 3 or 4 customers that have our Broncos that is literally their car. That's it. They don't have anything else at all. And I think that's testament to what we do. One of the things that you learn, though, and we've built like over 600 Broncos now, is when people start getting that mileage on them, things that you can't test here, you start to learn. So that was, over the course of all of the builds, that's something that we've started to track. We've got a Bronco here that we still own. That was actually the very first one we put down this production line here in this building. That's got like 40,000, 50,000, something like that miles on it, which is significant for a vehicle like this, because most people are not going to drive them more than 1,000 miles a year or something. But it helps us learn when people do drive them. Okay, cool. We can anticipate what's going to happen 500 miles in. We do 500 miles of testing here. We can kind of know now what happens at 2.5 and 3, 4,000 miles. But now we're starting to learn what happens at 50,000 miles, 40,000 miles. And those problems different to the ones that happen early. And so then we engineer changes. We engineer things so we fix that problem. But you have to learn that over time. You can't just predict it.
Yeah, that's true. And when you get that kind of mileage on a vehicle, sometimes you discover like certain interior pieces, for example, that are moving, maybe a switch or a knob or something. They wear out prematurely, like maybe there's a stress crack or something like that. I'm thinking of an e-brake switch in a car that I had. It was a push to release and a pull to engage. Well, it's a plastic part, and eventually the very end of it cracks off because it's actually not gusseted properly. Does that make sense? So
100%. There are things like that you don't know. Yeah, so I'll give you an example in one of our trucks, and this happened more recently. Inside a Bronco, in the original, we use new but OEM style door latches inside our vehicles for a Bronco. Some of the other ones we don't. But inside that mechanism, there is basically a I don't know the best way to describe it, but it's like a retaining or kind of guiding pin that helps the handle actuation work. And so when you depress the thumb, your listeners, I'm sure, have like messed with a Ford or have seen there's like a thumb button on most Ford door handles of that era. That guiding rod from factory on that OE piece of equipment did not have anything to keep it straight. So basically what's happening is it's a relatively thin piece of metal striking a flat plane on the other side. And you could open that door 500 times, you wouldn't have this problem. But when you start opening that door 5,000 times, over time, that pin at the end, or the rod, it kind of just bends, right? Because there's nothing helping it stay in place. It just bends. It's like an inch long, maybe a bit longer. We learned that, and then we changed it. We only learned that because people were driving them and using them for so much, right? And so what we did was we added an extra shroud, a surround, that now comes to us from the people that make the assembly, pre-fitted to our specs, that just helps that pin be retained so that not all the stress is put in that one pin. That stops the problem from happening. You'll never see that You'll never see it, unless you like fully disassemble the component. You'll never see it, so the customer would never know until the problem failed or the part failed. And that again, that's just a little bit of a testament to velocity and the scale. Is like it's not just the flashy stuff that you see; it's the actual use case long term that we care about too.
That's good to know because honestly, most high-end builds will never see high mileage. So you just never get to the point where you discover these minor but sometimes very frustrating faults that develop.
Definitely, yeah. You can't. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If that piece fails, you're not getting in that door. That's it. The striker just won't work anymore. And so there's various examples like that. Another one, door handle wise, learned this early on was we now have, as part of our QA process, a tool that tests how much force you have to put on that button to actually open the door too. And we discovered that because we actually have a lot of female owners of our vehicles, and of course, not trying to be generalize or anything, but most of the time women tend to just not have as much strength in the forearms and hands as a bloke, especially not as blokes that are techs that are working all the time and have really strong hands and forearms. So our guys were opening the doors and going, this opens great, no problem whatsoever. Lady would get it at home and she couldn't open it, right? Because she just didn't have a strong hand. So then implemented a system to set a standard that, coming back to Stuart and his nuclear engineering, set a standard and consistency that said, hey, this is how much pressure that you should have to enforce to open the door. That's it. And it has to be the same every time. That's the sort of stuff that we do.
Having opened many jars for my wife over the years, I can confirm that you're correct.
You can't do the hot water trick on a door latch.
No.
You can't do that on a jar.
Definitely not. There was something I wanted to ask you about the Fox Body builds, which is, are they in a way easier than doing a classic Mustang just because of they have much more modern architecture, right?
That's a great question. That's a really nuanced question. It's a good question. Yes, I think they are slightly. There's other challenges. Certainly, the stuff that we've already discussed around the design and making sure that you play it right there. But yeah, the core product is definitely slightly easier to work on, and then just it's the same as like going from a bump side truck to a dent side truck. Obviously, most people are going to look at that and say, yeah, there was a generational change. The aesthetics changed, of course, trim changed, all that stuff. But a lot of people, maybe some people do realize, but not all of our clients realize the dent side is actually slightly bigger inside the cabin. Even though it's still a single cab truck, there's actually slightly more travel that you can get out of the seat. And on the dent side, the doors shut in just a slightly better way than the bump side ever did. Even though they're only, when the change was only a year apart, but just those sort of little things, they all build up. So as you get into the Fox body, just talk about door shuts again, that feels very different to a late 60s or early 70s car. The way the door shuts, just because that's how it was from factory, the technology that Ford were using. So yeah, definitely some of those things come into effect for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing about your builds is that the fit and finish, door gaps, panel gaps, all that stuff, far better than they were originally. I mean, you have to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to be. I don't know what they were doing at Ford, but I used to tell this story back in when I was messing around with Land Rovers and doing similar things with Defenders. Back in those days, they didn't, especially for utility vehicles, they didn't really care what the gapping was like or what the door shuts were like. They didn't care. Land Rover, for a Defender, used to literally have a piece of wood on a giant spring. And as the Defender came down the factory, the technician would literally grab this piece of wood and pull it over the vehicle, huge plank with dimensions on it, and just pull it over the top of the truck and go, yeah, that's good. Like if it fits within this plank, you send it down the way. The gapping and the alignment's good, right? The adjustments are good. So what we do here, and again, I used to do the exact same thing on other products that I built, but we split everything and we gap everything before we paint it. So we use new Ford licensed metal for a Bronco. But it doesn't mean just because it's new that it's better fitting than the original. Quite the opposite, right? It's almost exactly the same. That's why it's licensed. So we build the entire car just in bare metal. We gap everything. We paint mark everything that needs to be adjusted. We do metal work. We do adjustments there. Any fab we need to do. Then we completely strip down the car again. Then we paint it. and that you just have to do it. Now, not everybody does that, and quite often people ask us because we are more expensive than some other builders out there. People say, well, why? What's the difference? The specs on at this level versus what other people build, they're cheaper than you, but the specs on paper are exactly the same, and that's in some cases exactly true. But then when you come to our facility and you actually see the process, like that gapping, not everybody does that, and that's why our prices are a little bit higher.
Yeah, that fine fettling is not cheap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not for skilled labor too, and especially with that sort of work, metal work, body work, paint work. Like those guys are hard to find now, and that's a real talent. It's a shame, but it's almost like a dying art. Same with trimmers, interior trim shop people. Like it's hard work and it's skilled work, and I think there's not a lot of people that want to do things, unfortunately, anymore that take hard work and are also a skill. And so it's difficult to find people like that. We're lucky to have a really strong team of people, but yeah.
Do you guys do any apprenticeship programs with young people who want to get into the business?
We do. Yeah, so we do. There's a couple different things that we do. We do. There's a. I don't know if it's a school or an academy, but there's a thing called Wyotech that help like train technicians and have young guys that come through and try and get some qualifications, and those guys can come and work for us. We regularly attend like their job fairs, and they do tours here and things like that. We have ran in the past full apprenticeship schemes for paint and body guys, where we would take a group of sort of 40 or 50 applicants, give them training, and then the kind of best 10% of people keep jobs with us, because that area is particularly hard. And then we do a lot of skill bridge stuff too. So people from military backgrounds that are getting out of the military and then want to come into civilian work. There's a lot of guys that, whether they be all the way through our organization, from Stuart down, right, whether senior managers and things that are ex-military. So that's a big part of what we do as well.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you guys have thought about that. And I mean, after all, you have to sustain the business and you need people.
100%.
Tom, what would you say is your most popular car?
They're boring, but still, because we've talked about a lot of the Bronco. The Bronco is still by far our most popular car. Yeah, we've built. Yeah, I think we're actually coming up on 650, maybe even more right now. But we built a lot of them, and I think we launched the F-250, the bump side. That was our first sort of new model, other model, a number of years ago. It was on Jay Leno's garage, and it really took off. But that was like a test, and the reason that we did it was because we were concerned. Hey, Broncos are incredibly popular, especially Gen 1 Broncos. When is this going to change? Is it going to change? And we probably need to be prepared for it if that kind of dies down. So we launched all these other models, and we've had great success. We've had tremendous success with the Chevrolet product as well. K5s, K10s, really way popular than we ever thought they were going to be. But always in the back of the mind, every year it's like, is this the year that we slow down on Broncos? Is this the year? And every year we build more of them, because they're just not going away. The most popular new model, definitely the 67, 68 Fastback is popular. But what surprised me, maybe not because of the cult following, is the K10 product, both the earlier generation and then the square body trucks. We've sold a lot of those too.
There's a few cars that I think would be cool if you guys were to pursue builds on. And let me just share this with you. Tell me what you think. The late 1970s, early 80s Lincoln Town Car.
Okay.
And the early 80s Ford Crown Victoria.
Crown Vic. Interesting. Yeah, I don't. Do you know what? I'm not sure.
I knew you. I knew you'd probably say pass on all those, but I'll tell you why. They're cool sedans. I think they've got good styling, lots of room, solid product, underappreciated, and talk about sleeper like a 1981 or 82 Crown Victoria. Think about the movie Men in Black, the car that they drive around, their black sedan. Think of that and think how cool that would be with like a Roadster shop chassis, Tremec, Coyote. Pretty awesome, dude.
That'd be awesome. I mean, listen, we have like another side to our shop, which is our custom side of the shop. There was another car at SEMA, a Chevelle that we built. We don't build Chevelles as standard, and that Chevelle was the same concept, and obviously Chevelles are really popular, right? But it was the same sort of idea. Somebody just wanted to do something really cool and really unique, and so we can do that sort of stuff. The challenge where we come up, like we talked about at the start, is making sure that when it's a signature series product, it can get the volume. You're right though about the style of that car and the space. That's definitely something that you're on the right track with. So I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year or even the year after that, but definitely we've got our eyes on the Wagoneer,
Oh yeah.
because that is such, and again, a classic family wagon, and has more space. We offer a F-350, like a crew cab truck, but in terms of a slightly smaller SUV 4-door, we don't offer anything like that at all. We don't. We've built a 4-door Bronco before as like a one-off thing, but we don't offer anything like that. So the Wagoneer for us is like the next thing that we could do, and of course they're so cool. Problem is they have so many pieces of trim, both inside and out. They're just really hard to get hold of. So again, we have to consider, as like more aftermarket support comes on for the parts, or even us going and developing a pipeline of parts ourselves, you have to do that bit first before you can put them in production. But definitely something with more space is what a lot of our customers are asking for.
Wagoneer is a brilliant choice. You definitely should pursue that. Those are so cool, but they were awful build quality. I have heard so many nightmare stories. I have a friend who had one, and it was just, he was tearing his hair out getting that thing right. All sorts of weird electrical glitches, and I want to say kind of problems with the transmission not shifting properly. And like you say, so much trim. I think you guys would have to pretty much re-engineer all of that.
Yeah, it's we bought one. We bought a really clean one from Barrett Jackson about 2 years ago, and we just started getting into it and just really trying to understand, taking it apart and scanning it and really understand, okay, what is this going to take? And full transparency, it definitely, as we got into it, it was like, yeah, this is way more work than probably anything else we've ever done. But it's a challenge, and we like a challenge, so that's in the works for sure.
I mean, the same crowd who buys G-Wagons and high-end custom Defenders. I'm talking about, the Martha's Vineyard crowd, right?
Mm-hmm.
The West Palm Beach crowd. They would definitely go for a Wagoneer.
100%. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely up there for sure.
the other thing about those vehicles is that, just like we talked about with the Fox Body Mustang, you could bring that interior up a few notches with materials and textures and, just the general quality of all the interior furnishings.
Yeah, definitely. There would definitely be. I mean, there was some cool options from factory. The one that we've got here is this really cool cream color with various pieces of wood trim, and I mean, the thing's beautiful. So there's definitely stuff that we could do there. But it will be like on the Fox. It will be about understanding how do we retain the feeling of these things and the look of these things, but improve the function. That's always the question.
All right. Well, the first one you build, you got to promise me you're going to do tartan inserts on the seats.
Yeah, I'll try. We'll try. We've done tartan inserts before. We offer it on Broncos, and well, on all of our products, we do offer inserts, whether they be like a pleat or a plaid or a tartan. But sure, that'd be really cool.
I think it would look great. We got to talk a little bit about pricing because these are not cheap. We're talking what's the entry price for what's the entry price for a Fox Body Mustang, a notch?
They're like 280 around that ballpark. Yeah, for a signature series. Yeah, the cheapest, and that's just such a crazy phrase to use because of course they're all expensive products. So the entry level product that we offer is the Bronco. They're 260, 265. We actually did just do a price increase, but not without reason. This year for 2026 we added electronic transfer case rather than manual transfer case. We added some extra options that would previously have been cost options that customers kept adding anyway. So we just kind of said, hey, we're just going to offer them a standard. So those are like the entry level, but average price tends to be around 300. Depends on the truck. The thing that I really like about what we do here is we don't, not to disparage anybody else, but we don't bait and switch. So if you buy a Bronco from us, we don't say, hey, here's the Bronco, but then if you want electric windows or you want the powered steps, things that you just need, you then have to pay again and again and again for, and like hit you with a million options after the fact. Like every vehicle that we build, the Signature Series base spec, is to the level that I would feel comfortable driving every single day. They all have power windows. They all have the steps if they need them, so they're easy to get in and out of. They all have roll cages if they need them. They all have power brakes. They all have the V8 engines. We don't do any of that like lower spec to then talk people up. That's pretty important to us because, again, we want them to be usable.
Yeah, you're talking about the steakhouse business model, right? Which is everything is a la carte. So you end up spending $200 for one person for dinner.
That's right. Yeah, and then also like the stuff that we talked about earlier with the price is to do with not just the parts, but it's also to do with the labor and what you're putting into it, and the stuff that unfortunately you won't ever see or know until you've built a vehicle that's been built differently and you realize. So like it's a constant thing, and I'm glad we're talking about it. I do YouTube videos for the YouTube channel, and of course there's always one comment that's like, why is this so expensive? Like, what gives you guys the right to charge this much money? And we'll be the first people to admit, if you wanted to like spend 5 or 6 or however many years yourself doing it in your own garage, A, we would support you. We sell interior kits and things like that. We sell our billet components. But B, you can do it. You can definitely do it for less money than what we charge, 100%. But what we give our customers is value adds that aren't necessarily things that you can see or that are directly related to the car. So, for example, we talked about all of the gapping, but a lot of things like all vehicles have brand new axle internals. I can't tell you how many people say, I will go and buy something or build something cheaper. And then it turns out that the builder that's doing it doesn't replace any of the axle internals. They just replace the externals. That's a problem. That will let you down in 6 to 12 months after using the vehicle, especially if you can drive it hard. But then also things like the experience, like, hey, you don't have to wait 5 years for this vehicle. We're going to build it in 18 weeks. We're going to do it to a fixed timeline. It comes with 2-year warranty. You get updates every stage of the way. You're never in the dark. And if anything happens, we're there to support you. That costs money. I know people don't want to hear that, but like having that experience and giving people that, and also then supporting them after the fact, that is a cost center for us, right? And so that's all comes as part of the price. We're also, we're a business that obviously, we're in business, we want to make a little bit of money too, but the cost is not just like this egregious amount of profit. It's to do with the operations of the business outside of just one product.
Right. I mean, most people who complain about price like that they're not considering the big picture. I mean, just if you were doing it in your garage, just the cost of replacing, let's say, 300 fasteners, because you're going through the build, you find inevitably these nuts are trash now because they were on the axle and the threads are beat up, and just things like that will nickel and dime you to death in your own garage. I imagine you guys are going through all of that very meticulously, and there's a lot of replacement of just those small parts that most people don't think about.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. And I keep going back to it's the stuff that you can't see early on, but then you realize later on are really important. I think it's that, and then also it's the guys that are building it. It's the skill. We employ people that have skills, whether you're training it into people or they've already got them. It costs money to do that, but the benefit is at the end, the product is built in a way that, that is excellent. And that's something that we're not for everybody, and we never will claim to be. But we want to make sure that people are getting what they pay for, and to do that you have to invest in all of those things, not just the parts. You have to invest in the people and the process.
And I'm guessing that a lot of maybe underhood parts or undercarriage parts, stuff that you're going to reuse, it all gets media blasted and powder coated, and again, that's a whole process unto itself. You could be a shop that specializes in nothing but that.
Yeah. I mean, we do all of our own powder coating in-house. We do all of our own sandblasting material, media blasting in-house. We have stations dedicated to that and techs dedicated to that. A lot of people that don't do that have to send it out of house. But then the problem is, if you outsource things, truth is you can't control the quality. Coming back to the conversation we had earlier about quality. So that's why we do it all here. But yeah, we could just be a fab shop if we wanted to. That's a part of the process. We could just be a paint shop if we wanted to. We have 4 downdraft paint booths, but we're not. We do it all, and all of that then comes together in what we feel is a compelling end product.
Yeah. And you guys are also using like all of your coatings and paints are state of the art. That stuff isn't cheap either.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everything. I think we're on BASF Glasier now, but it's it's various different paint schemes you can use. It's about the quality of the painter themselves. It's about the environment that you're painting in. A lot of places. And again, this is not to like be disparaging to anything else. There's a reason that other people are cheaper, and for a lot of people, they might come to us and say, "Hey, actually, I don't need the vehicle to be that level. I am just going to build it myself. Or I'm going to work with somebody else." That's cool. That's fine. But yeah, it's we wrapped a line every vehicle, underside, topside, everywhere that there's not paint. You will not find an area that does not have a coating or covering to protect it. We unfortunately we often get trade-ins from other builders, and one of the first things that I'll look at is if you look on the back of a Bronco, back right corner, in the tub, there's a hole that you can look down into the square, like a mounting hole basically, and if you look in there you can just tell immediately if somebody's actually gone all the way through that body and prepped it correctly or not. And oftentimes you'll see this beautiful car that looks from like 5 meters away that it's been painted great, and then you come into it and the light starts there and you've got trash in the paint, you look down that hole, there's rust all inside it, and you're like, and then you get underneath it, it's just been rattle canned and somebody's still spent $180,000 on it, and it's like, oh wow, okay. That unfortunately happens way more frequently than people think.
Yeah, not surprising. Tom, where do you guys source the donor vehicles? Do your clients bring them to you for the most part, or do you actually, are you scouring the country for dry, rust-free Broncos and Mustangs?
Yeah, occasionally people will bring their vehicle, but most of the time they don't. Most of the time we provide the vehicle. So if people are providing the vehicle, it tends to be if it's like an heirloom or an emotional product, like they've had the car or it was a gift from their family member or something like that, and they want to retain the core vehicle. And that's really cool because that's sometimes where we do offer a little bit of flexibility where we'll try and remake the car as it originally was. So we might make like a one-off bench seat that matches the exact material of the original because that's what they remember sitting in and stuff like that. But most of the time we're providing the donor. So yeah, we have a network of sourcing guys that are all around the country basically looking for vehicles. So we get a lot of call-ins here where people offer obviously to sell us their vehicles, and we have fixed rates that we'll pay for donors and the conditions that we're looking for. And then we have a network of people that are out there looking for them too.
Okay. So you're not in the office cruising Facebook Marketplace, are you?
I'm not, but there actually probably is a couple of the guys that are doing that. Yeah. We're always looking for stuff, especially with Bronco, you mentioned right at the start, they built a lot of Broncos, but like the F350s, or what we call the F350, but could be F250 crew cab, the actual core vehicle, those were much rarer, so finding things like that is a little bit harder. Yeah.
There's a lot of guys out there who are not real happy about how popular restomod pickups have become because they've jacked the price up on your average F-150 or F-250. But I mean, it's just the world we live in.
Yeah. Listen, yeah, you're right. And we're lucky enough that we do have quite a lot of enthusiasts that come through here too, and they definitely understand the frustration. And of course, there's a lot of people that just want to be able to keep their trucks and keep them on the road, and that clearly our intent is to just try and keep them alive and let people drive them and use them like they were or better than they were originally. But anybody can. We offer tours here. Anybody can come and see what we do. We've got a boneyard out the back where we keep all of the donors. You can come and see all of the cars that we've got out there. Come and take a look. And I think people realize when they get here, hey, we're not just this like big corporate machine. Like every single technician here really cares about what they're doing, and they all have some sort of Bronco or truck story themselves. They all have their own thing. Our parking lot's filled with the guys themselves that are working on their own home projects and things like that. So we do really care about the history.
Well, awesome builds. Tom Maxwell, Chief Revenue Officer at Velocity Restorations, but I think it really should be Chief Restoration Officer. Tom, thanks for coming on the show, and people can find out more at velocityrestorations.com.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Maurice. It was great. I love the conversation. I definitely will go and lobby for my title to be changed. I like it a lot, and it was great talking to you. I think it's always cool to connect.
That's all for this episode of Horsepower Heritage. head over to YouTube to see the latest video. It's the story of a few Pebble Beach cars and their owners. You'll love that one. And there are more videos to come, so please subscribe to Horsepower Heritage on YouTube. And if you enjoy the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and a review. And if you want to become a patron, go to buymeacoffee.com/HP Heritage. Thanks to all of you who've become patrons recently. You really help keep the show going, and I appreciate it. And until next time, I'm Maurice Merrick. Thanks for listening.